Hello, I'm Emma Desi and welcome to another episode of Turning Readers into Writers. If you're brand new here, welcome, and here's what you need to know. This is a community that believes you are never too old to write your first novel. No matter what you've been up to until now, if you're ready to write your book, I'm ready to help you reach the end. I focus on helping you find the time and confidence to begin your writing journey, as well as the craft and skills you need to finish the book. Each week I interview debut authors, editors and industry experts to keep you motivated, inspired and educated on all things writing, editing and publishing. If you want to catch up, head on over to emmadesi.com where you'll find a wealth of information and tools to help you get started. Before we dive in, this week's episode is brought to you by my Patreon page over at patreon.com. For supporting the production costs of the podcast each month, you'll receive additional conversations with each week's guest, you'll receive a personal thank you from me, and of course a shout out on the show. It's an exclusive community of writers who, for only $3 a month, want to support the show and ensure it continues. If you'd like access to additional material and a shout out on the show, go to patreon.com/EmmaDesi. So come on over to patreon.com/EmmaDesi where I'll be waiting to welcome you into the family. Okay, let's dive into today's episode. Jo Buer is a Gothic and ghost fiction writer living in New Zealand. She is a sucker for the supernatural, she says, as well as time travel and all things woo-woo. From an early age, she came to realise that sometimes truth is stranger than fiction, and what we think we know isn't always true. Jo lives in an ordinary house in an ordinary town with her muggle hubby, feline familiars, Atlas, Gaia and Zeus, and ghost kitties, Loki, Rhea and Odin. When not doting on her cats, devouring self-help books or gorging on chocolate, she writes slightly dark, sometimes scary, often ghostly stories with a smattering of romance. Well, welcome Jo, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm thrilled to have you here.
I am absolutely thrilled to be here. This is so exciting.
It's particularly exciting because you're on the other side of the world, quite literally. I'm here in Scotland and you are in?
I am in New Zealand and it's the very early hours of the morning right now. So,
oh, well, I appreciate you getting up so early. I really do.
Oh, no, I'm just thrilled to be here.
Now, I'm going to go right back to the beginning of your writing life and ask you, when was it that you realised that you wanted to be a writer? When did that happen for you?
Well, that's kind of funny. I'm one of many writers and authors who's always known that they've wanted to write. And I very clearly remember when I was 6 years old, it was my 6th birthday. And I got one of those little My Little Ponies and I was so thrilled. It was my first My Little Pony toy. And so I went to school and for some reason, I had decided that I was just going to write the most spectacular story about it. And my story was going to be so amazing that I was so sure the teacher was just going to be so proud of me and want to share it with the class and give me the gold stars. And it was just going to be the best. And I remember this very clearly. I had decided the way my story was going to stand out was I was going to write all of it, which I'm sure was probably only 2 sentences at the time, but all of it in uppercase letters and capital letters. And I'm not sure why I decided that. I don't know if I saw an adult do that once or what, but I thought, kids don't do this, so this is going to make me a real writer. And so I wrote my little story all in uppercase letters and put my hand up and waited for the teacher to come around. And I must have had the biggest smile on my face because I honestly knew she was just going to applaud me as the most amazing writer. And my little heart broke because she actually told me off in front of the class because you don't write stories in capital letters and that's not what we do. And yet it never turned me off. So I kept that passion. Obviously, she didn't know anything about writing, so I kept that passion. And I continued writing lots of stories as a kid, and anytime I could convince my teacher to let me share them with the class, I would do that.
Oh, good for you.
And then, yeah, so I had that confidence, strangely enough. And then in my teen years, I changed to writing, really angsty poetry about heartache and life and death and philosophizing about everything, and
a rite of passage, I think, isn't it? That
absolutely. And then something shifted, and as an adult, I stopped writing. Really, I talked about it all the time. Anybody that would listen, I was always talking about how I wanted to be a writer, and I was going to write lots of books, and I was going to do it as a living. And I really didn't write a lot. I did a few courses on writing and started a good few novels. And then it wasn't really until about 3 years ago when I started to notice, or didn't start to notice, but really notice that there were so many unhappy people out there who were just living their lives but not really loving their lives. Mm-hmm. And they weren't following their passions, and they'd kind of fallen out of love with their life. They weren't going after their dreams, and I was beginning to feel that way myself, and I didn't want to be one of them. Mm-hmm. So, I started to, I think I stumbled across Joanna Penn's Creative Pen podcast, which, she's just amazing.
Transformative, isn't it?
Yeah, and learned all about indie publishing, self-publishing, and that just blew my mind. You've got so much control over everything with that. And then so I managed to get a couple of short stories published in a local literary magazine.
Oh, congratulations.
So that was kind of, okay, maybe I can write, because something happens between being a kid and being an adult. I think sometimes your confidence shifts a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't until January 2020, which is so strange, but 2020 was my year that I decided, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go all in around the day job, but all in behind the scenes with my writing. And so I put together some of my other short stories and sent them off to my first editor, which was very exciting, and got them back end of January. And then the crazy of 2020 kind of hit, mm-hmm. and they sat there for a while. And it wasn't until just at the end of our lockdown here in New Zealand, I think in May, that I sent them out into the world as a reader magnet, and to attract people to my newsletter and everything, and dove into reworking one of my NaNoWriMo novels into a real novel. And so that went out into the world on January 1st, 2021, this year.
Well, we're going to come back to that, but big congratulations for that. That really is a real milestone in any writer's career. But I'm going to take us back a little bit, because I understand you've completed a BA in creative writing. Is that right?
So I've got a BA in English, which had a specialisation in creative writing. So a big component of that was in creative writing, which was really great. That was amazing. I had some phenomenal teachers. One, Catherine Chidgey, is quite a well-known author, traditionally published author here in New Zealand. And there was lots of workshopping. So you were expected to bring a piece of your writing, what you were working on, to class every week. And you'd send it ahead of time for your kind of peers to critique and read. And then you'd sit in a workshop and they would give you feedback. And I just found that amazing. You learned so much from reading other people's writing, and from offering feedback, and from the feedback you got as well. So that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wonder, because I've not been part of a critique group like that before. And I confess I am very nervous about giving feedback to other people. Did they kind of teach you the sort of protocol of doing it? How do you give feedback without, because we're very protective of our written work.
Absolutely.
Very sensitive about it. So did they give you any sort of instruction on how to give that feedback without upsetting your fellow classmates? Can you remember?
Come to think of it, no, they didn't. Not that I remember anyway, but we were all very, I think because it was a very small group, we had to kind of apply to get into the program, I think, and we were all there for the same reasons. And I mean, it was going to be our writing out on the table too. So I think we just naturally found ways to give feedback and feed forward in positive ways. So yeah, no, it worked well.
Good. No, it sounds like it. I can see that it's not traumatized you anyway at all.
No.
And so what might be one of the biggest takeaways from doing that BA, do you think, that you might have had, whether it be on the kind of literature side, the love of classics or the love of foreign language, or even on the creative writing side? What's kind of one of the things that you still use to this day, do you think?
To be honest, I think the biggest takeaway was the confidence it gave me. Like I said, I think when you get older, you tend to lose confidence in your abilities. And having some of my peers say, "Oh, I really enjoyed your piece. I want to know what happens next." And my particular tutor at the time, Catherine, she fell in love with one of my I'd written it as a poem, and she'd actually said, "Oh, I think this might be better actually as a bit of prose," and had me rework it. But she really fell in love with it and kind of contacted me outside of class to say as much, which was that huge confidence boost. And so I always kind of keep that in mind, because if somebody whose writing I really admire actually enjoyed something I wrote, well, then, on the bad days when you're feeling like the biggest kind of imposter, you can go, yes, but, there's a published author that's traditionally published, and that's not easy to do, particularly here in New Zealand, that liked my work. So that was actually a huge takeaway.
Yeah, it shows the importance of a good teacher. It doesn't matter if you're in primary school or if you're going as a young adult. Have someone believe in you and what you're doing and what you're aspiring to is such a wonderful source of validation that you're doing the right thing and to carry on and keep plodding on. So I love that.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that 2020, I think it might have been in the same article or piece that I read, that you did mention that 2020 was a very pivotal year for you. It was like you decided this was going to be your year. And so what was it about 2020 that made you decide this was going to be the year? Because given everything that has been going on, I think it's been kind of easy for a lot of people to say, do you know what, this isn't the right year for me to start a business, publish a book, do something new. I'll wait till the pandemic's gone. I'll wait till everything's calmed down. What was it about this year that you thought, or what was it about you that said, no, this is my year, I'm going to carry on regardless?
I think the lead up to it. So like I said, it was about 3 years ago, 2018, that I really... it really hit me hard that so many people were living lives that they weren't loving. And I knew that when I sat down and forced myself to do some writing, I just felt like a different person. It just lit me up inside. And if I felt that way, then I probably was a better person. And wouldn't it be better to have that version of me out in the world? And there was a couple of things in the lead up to that. I saw a friend lose somebody incredibly close to her, and we lost a couple of fur babies kind of over that time. And it was that stark reminder that life is so short. If we don't go after our dreams now, when will we? And we might not be given the option to wait until we've got more money or we've got more time or we're retired or anything like that. So there was almost this sense of urgency to just get on with it.
Mm-hmm.
And probably like a lot of people, I went into 2020 with huge optimism of what an amazing year it was going to be. I'm one of these people that love New Year's just for that sense of renewal and starting again. And and then about midway through January, it proved that it was going to be a little bit different. And I don't know, I just had this huge sense of commitment to I'm going all in as far as I can around a day job, but I want to see how far this will go. And there's also that dream that maybe it'll lead on to creating that life for myself and my family that we all want. Self-publishing allows for a lot of freedom in a lot of ways. It gets rid of that glass ceiling on what you can make financially. It's the idea of being able to work from home and be around loved ones and work from anywhere really appealed to me. And I think during our lockdown here in New Zealand, I realized that I am disciplined enough to meet deadlines and to work from home. I was fine with it. I actually enjoyed it. So yeah, I think all those things kind of just said, yeah, this is the path. So
yeah. And I think for a lot of writers, I've heard a lot of other writers say, actually, there was elements of the pandemic in particular that worked in our favor because we're naturally reclusive anyway, and
yes.
are quite happy to be at home, not necessarily reclusive, but more introverted, shall I say.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Happy to be at home and be writing and doing what we love. And I know that I, for one, was really glad not to do a lot of the stuff, and instead of having my husband kind of hustle me out the door to be more active, I could say, well, I'm not allowed out, so leave me alone.
Exactly.
I want to go and read my book. But I think that shows a real kind of genuine entrepreneurial personality that you've got, that you know that you can set these deadlines for yourself, that no matter what else is happening, no matter that you're having to start working from home, you're able to kind of keep going. Yeah, we've got a bit of a problem here, but I'm going to pivot, I'm going to adjust, and I'm going to still pursue my dreams and what's important to me. So I think it puts you already in kind of good stead for being an indie publisher, I think. So
yeah, well, thank you.
Now, as part of being an indie entrepreneur or an authorpreneur, you've set up a website for yourself. How did you find that? Was that easy or difficult? And what kind of advice might you have for any new authors who are thinking of doing the same?
Well, that so I did Mark Dawson's self-publishing Formula 101 course, which I highly, highly recommend. Cannot recommend that enough to anybody starting out on this journey. And of course, he talks about having your own website. It's your real estate really out there in the webosphere. So I am not all that, or wasn't back then anyway, all that tech savvy. And I had no idea really how to start up a website. And it was actually my husband that had suggested, I've heard of Squarespace. Why don't you check it out? And it was perfect. It's really easy to work. It took me a very long time to do it myself, but I was determined to do it myself. I figured when I was earning the big bucks, then I can maybe pay somebody to do it. But in the meantime, I can work this out. And so a bit of that stubborn tenacity, and I got it done. So I think finding a platform that you're either familiar with or is easy enough to work, and there's things. Squarespace is pretty easy. You just choose a template and away you go. I have heard of Nick Stevenson's Author Cats, which I think I've looked into that. It's a bit more expensive for, I think, a beginning author, but it's done for you, and it has everything that an author site can need. So you can get your books up there, and you can change it up as you need to, or get them behind the scenes to do that for you.
And so what was the advice from either from Nick Stevenson or from Mark Dawson? What did they kind of suggest to you that you need to have on your author website? What did you put on yours?
So I looked at a lot of other author websites too, just to see what they were doing. And I wanted room to add to it down the line as well. So I think it's really important to have a bit about yourself, a bio, and whether it's got your own photo or if you're using a pen name, maybe you might not want your own photo, but something that like a logo or something that is kind of the same across all the platforms that you use. So I do need to change it up, but my photo on my website is the same in, I think, for Facebook and social media and kind of every other kind of author thing that platform that I'm on.
I think that's a good thing though, because then people they go, oh yeah, I recognize Jo's face. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I've got my bio up there. I have links kind of everywhere to, if you want to sign up to my newsletter, you can get this free book, Between the Shadows, which is my collection of short stories. So that is pretty bold and one of the first things you see. I also decided to put on some of the links to some of the short stories I had published in the literary magazine because it was online and they were available online. And I did that because at the time I didn't have any books written. So I thought, well, I'll put that up there. So there's also a contact sheet. And when I was ready to put out my debut novel, I also put out a excerpt of the prologue on there as well that I could send people to check this out, have a read. You know, if you like this, then just so you know, coming soon is Rest Easy Resort. So, yeah, and I have been thinking about adding to it. So there's a for readers section, which I'd like to expand out a bit, but I would like to do a for writers section as well, where there is just tips on mindset and that too for beginning writers, beginning authors. So yeah,
well, I'm all for that. I think the more information out there, the better for people to come and discover, so that they can, find what they need to make sure that they write their book too.
Absolutely.
Good. Well, thank you for sharing that with us, because author platform, I think, is very important, and I've sort of certainly within my community, I've been talking a little bit more about that and the importance of it, even if it's having a very simple website, but it's a home base. It's where people can come and find out about you and everything you do. It's really, really needed. Now I want to move just a little bit. You've mentioned already that you do have a day job. And yes. One of the things that my audience have kind of said to me is that time management is something, finding the time to write is something that they struggle with a lot, and it really can be quite prohibitive in some cases. So I'm wondering, you've got a day job, you've got a family, you've got a social life. How do you manage your time to ensure that you can still have all of that, but you get your writing done at the same time? Do you have a routine, for example?
Yes and no. So it is a real struggle. I am lucky in some respects that I probably have a little bit more time and that I don't have children. I have cats and a husband. But I am a teacher. And so I think anybody that's been in education knows that it can be quite time consuming, even outside your normal teaching hours. It can also be quite emotionally taxing. And so that, to be honest, has been one of the biggest struggles in finding in scheduling time to write, is that sometimes that the emotion that kind of comes up through the day with the ups and downs of being a teacher, you're just not feeling it. You just don't quite have the headspace to kind of get into what's required of you to sit down and write. So that's been a little bit of a struggle. I would love to be one of those people who could get up really early and write before going to work. but I make the commitment to myself to get up really early to go to the gym. And so I'm usually up at about 4:30 most mornings, and there's just no room. There's no room in the morning to fit anything else in. It's ridiculous.
Oh my goodness. How long are you in the gym?
Well, not that long, but it's the gym is not too far from us. My husband goes with me, and so our classes generally start around 5 in the morning, and then by the time I get home and ready for work, and then I have a bit of a drive through the countryside to get to my school that I work at, and then it's straight into it. So I find that my writing tends to take place in the evenings. So I do try as much as I can when I'm at work to kind of work through my morning teas and lunches and try and make the most of that time, so that if I can leave early, then I will. Mm-hmm. And I am somebody that feels like I need a block to sit down, a block of writing time. So I need at least half an hour just in my office to really focus. Mm-hmm. And I have a calendar kind of on my wall of word counts or deadlines that I need to meet, and then that's what I do. So half an hour
that you give yourself that accountability, and that on the calendar you can see the words mount, which then makes you feel good and encourages you to continue.
And there are some days where I just can't. I'm just exhausted, or work's gone on for longer, or something's happened, and seeing my word counts up on that calendar, I'm like, okay, well, I'll just have to put in a little bit of extra effort in the weekend, or shuffle things around, or on the odd occasion I'll miss the gym so I can get up early and get into the office. But it really does come down to being really committed to those goals. And one of the best ways I have found to be committed to those goals is to hold yourself accountable, and to find others to hold you accountable. And I don't like to disappoint people, so I book my editor out in advance and then put that pressure on myself to get it done. And because I pay a deposit too for her services, she's amazing. But there's also that, financial kind of accountability. I've paid in advance a deposit, so I need to meet those deadlines. Mm-hmm. And having a newsletter go out every 2 weeks too, and I tend to talk about what I'm doing. I feel like all those people that do open the newsletter and read it, I've told them, where I'm headed and what I'm doing, so I owe it to them to do it. Mm-hmm. So there's all those things that keep me accountable. I also, a lot of writing, I think, is really just thinking. I find for myself, I have like a 35-minute drive through the country, which is really lovely, to my day job. And I use that time to listen to the playlist that I always have created for whatever book I'm working on, to kind of inspire me for the scenes that I'm going to write, or working out plot problems. Or I use it to listen to podcasts like your own, to, kind of fuel up on that excitement of other people are doing this too, you can do it, or just learning new things. So I make use of those times with other ways to kind of keep on track with the writing biz. So
yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you that a lot of the writing, a lot of the creativity, I should say, does happen away from the desk. And it's in those quiet moments, either on a drive or in the shower or doing the dishes, something like that. That's when an idea will spark, or a solution to that scene that's been bugging you for ages and you can't find a way out of it, and suddenly it comes to you. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I love that you're so open with your accountability, in that you're very public with it. I've told my mailing list, this is what I'm doing. I've booked my editor, so I've got to do it. And it gives you that spurt to go on. I love that, and I really admire that. You're far braver than me. I've never dared book my editor that far in advance.
I I don't trust myself to get it done. Otherwise, I can come up with any excuse under the sun not to write. That is easy, but I do not want to disappoint anybody. And the idea of, disappointing somebody else, even if it's somebody that I don't know, I don't want that. So I'll get it done.
I'm really impressed. Well done, you. Now, talking of your book, as you mentioned, Rest Easy Resort has published 2 days ago. Was it 2 days ago?
So on the 1st of January, it was. Yeah. Well, so that's when I said, yes, it is launched to the world. I managed to slip it in there just actually at the end of December. So I could say, well, I published 2 books in 2020. But
so tell us about it. Tell us about the book.
All right. So it is a little bit of a Gothic ghost story with supernatural elements. And so it's about the main protagonist is Hannah O'Connor, and she is setting off on her honeymoon with her husband Mike, and he kind of decided that they were going to go to this little island with this resort called Rest Easy Resort that's newly revived. It was a resort that kind of fell into abandon, and then his family invested in it and brought it back to life. And it's a week before its grand opening. So he decided, well, honeymoon, work trip, we can do this. And Hannah's not too impressed with that. She's not too fond of large bodies of water either. She's had some childhood trauma from that. And so being on a little island surrounded by the sea is not ideal. And then her husband keeps getting pulled away with things that are going a little bit sideways at the resort, leaving Hannah on her own more and more. Only she's not really as alone as she thinks she is. And so there's some, there's some things that start happening. There's some protests about land ownership that the resort's built on. She discovers that the land's actually cursed. And her husband, his whole demeanor starts to change, which brings up a lot of questions for her and their marriage. And she has to, in the end, she really has to decide what's most important to her and what she's willing to sacrifice for love. So there's a little bit of a love story in there. I love writing about ghosts. So there's a little bit of that kind of ghost kind of thing. So it was so much fun to write. Now,
because you mentioned in your bio that you do like things that are kind of have a supernatural element or a bit of a time travel element. What is it about ghost stories and the supernatural that you enjoy?
I think it encourages people to think about the world a little bit differently and to think outside of themselves. And I just love that. I love the idea that maybe everything we see in front of us is not everything. Maybe there's more to life than we first think or see or believe even. So I think a little bit of that supernatural just makes us reconsider and question what we know about life and what we know about ourselves. And I think that's kind of fun.
Yeah, so, it is. So I don't know why I've got this question in. I've obviously read this somewhere. Do you have plans to turn the book into a podcast?
Well, not the book into a podcast, but I have. So now that I've kind of begun this journey into the world of writing and whatnot, I want to just do all the things. So, I just want to do it all. So I've got some more, I'm working on another novel now, and I've got some other ideas of novels in different states I want to work on. But I have been thinking more and more about kind of side biz to the writing biz, where it just delves a little bit deeper into mindset, particularly with beginning authors. It's the difference between whether you get something written or you don't. It really does come down to how you deal with things like that imposter syndrome and your own self-doubt and goal setting and all of that. And so I have been just plain mulling the idea over. So that might be something that I look at a little bit more in depth later on this year. Yeah.
Well, it's good fun. I really enjoy it. So I recommend it.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Now, you sort of touched on it there with the mindset stuff, but I know that you're interested in self-help books. I wonder if you could mention one or two that have been your favorites and you think might help other listeners out there.
Oh, gosh. So that is really hard to narrow down to just a few. In I think my teen years or my early 20s, I really got into Julia Cameron and her Artist's Way series, and they are still just absolute Bibles. I just love them because they go not so much into the business of writing, but about keeping that your creativity fueled, keeping that fire lit, and moving past those kind of boundaries that hold you back because you're concerned that you're not good enough, or who am I to make art, or who am I to take the time to make art. So I highly recommend all of her books. She has one, The Right to Write, which is so RIGHT, the right to write as we do with pens and whatnot. And that for a very long time, I used to reread that one over and over. I also look at, there's been a few recent books that I just think are so great for inspiring you to get on with living the life that you want to live. Kathy Heller, who has a podcast as well, I think it's something like Don't Quit Your Day Job, or no, Do Quit Your Day Job, something like that. It's something about, or Don't Keep Your Day Job, something like that. But she has a book by the same title, and she pulls on a lot of other personal development kind of gurus out there, and how you make those moves towards making your passion a livelihood, or at least a side hustle. And that is another really brilliant book.
Okay.
I have a million. Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with Julia Cameron. I've read the most famous one that she's got, The Artist's Way.
The Artist's Way.
Yeah, I haven't read the others though, but certainly The Artist's Way was, it's funny you say that. I think I was in my early 20s as well when I found that and loved that. But I haven't come across Kathy Heller, so I'll be looking her up as well.
Yeah, cool.
Great. So you briefly touched on it just before, that you said that you've got another idea that you're working on. So is this going to be some more short stories or another novel?
Both. Like I said, I want to do all the things. So at the moment, I'm working on another novel. So similar genre to Rest Easy Resort. It takes place in a school environment, but is in the 1940s and in present day. So it's kind of over two split time periods. So
I love stories with a dual timeline.
Yeah. So this is really fun. And then it's got, of course, a little bit of the ghost kind of aspects to it. So that's fun. So I'm working on that at the moment, and to keep myself accountable and putting it out there that I have it booked with my editor for the 1st of March. So here we go.
Gosh, yeah, no pressure then.
Yeah, no pressure. So getting it done. And then I have been playing around with putting together another small collection of short stories. And I would like to look at audiobooks as well, and maybe changing Between the Shadows into audiobook for a reader magnet as well. And yeah, just looking at some of those things.
And do you think that you would narrate those yourself, or would you be looking for someone to do that for you?
I think at this stage, setting out, I'd probably narrate it myself. I did, I think, back in, I don't know if it was October or something, a webinar by, I'm going to get his name wrong, but it's Derek Dopeker or something like that.
Yes. Yeah, I know him.
And he might have actually, I want to say maybe I first heard of him on Joanna Penn's podcast or something, possibly. I'm not sure. But I signed up for his course on narrating it yourself. I haven't delved into it yet, but am looking at maybe giving that a go as a possibility. So
that's exciting.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
So where can people find out about you? If they want to find out more about you and your books, where can they find you?
All right. So there is my website, which is just www.jobuer.com. So that's JOBUER. And then I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, and that's Jo Buer Author. For both of those is the handle. So should be pretty easy to find on those.
Lovely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Jo. I've loved chatting to you.
Oh, it's been so fun. Thank you so much for having me. It's awesome.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found that helpful and inspirational. Now, don't forget to come on over to Facebook and join my group, Turning Readers into Writers. It is especially for you if you are a beginner writer who is looking to write their first novel. If you join the group, you will also find a free cheat sheet there called 3 Secret Hacks to Write with Consistency. So go to emmadesi.com/turning readers into writers, hit join. Can't wait to see you in there. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.